Les saluda Benjamín Cornejo, su anfitrión de Mi Huésped Podcast. En esta oportunidad les quiero presentar la entrevista con Julia y Víctor. La entrevista se desarrolla en inglés, pero antes quiero yo contarles algo sobre ellos. Julia y Víctor viven en Estados Unidos. Ambos comparten la pasión por viajar y han recorrido más de 40 países en 15 años. Entre ellos, por supuesto, El Salvador. En este interesante programa, Julia y Víctor nos cuentan algunas increíbles anécdotas de sus viajes y nos dan algunas recomendaciones para facilitar la experiencia de viajar. Y por supuesto, nos dan su impresión sobre El Salvador. Escuchemos pues esta entrevista tan inspiradora. Today I have Julia and Victor. They came the last day of 2021 to one of our apartments. We felt very happy that they accepted our invitation to welcome the new year at home and share some time with us. During our conversations, Julia and Victor told me that they have traveled extensively around the world. In this interview, we will explore with them their stories and experiences during their trips. I welcome Julia and Victor to Mi Huésped Podcast. Let me start asking about your background to both of you.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. My name is Julia. I was born in Ukraine many years ago. I'm not going to say how many. I was raised in Russia. And when I was a young teenager, my family moved to America. And I've lived there since. I am a network administrator, so I work all day with computers. A lot of sitting, a lot of troubleshooting, not a lot of moving around, not a lot of seeing new things. It's kind of a same thing day in, day out. Travel is one of my biggest passions. It's one of the things I always look forward to doing. It's something that I make sure to consciously plan every single year, every long holiday, every day of vacation that I get from my job. All of it is planned. I even have a contingency plan in case I leave my job and I have a few weeks before the next job starts. What am I going to do then? Where am I going to go? Where am I going to travel? It's something I've been doing since I graduated from college. I took my very first trip to Europe with some of my friends, and I absolutely loved it. It was crazy. I lost my luggage. The very first hotel I stayed in, I left my credit card and my cash behind. So I literally had nothing. And it was honestly some of the funnest weeks of my life. So I thought, well, I have to do this again. And then I joined a Russian comedy group in Chicago as a writer. We were writing jokes, stand-up routines, things like that. And that's where I met Victor. He came as a young 20-year-old actor, and we hit it off right away. We both realized that we enjoyed the same things. And one of those things was traveling. So we've been traveling ever since.
What about you, Victor?
Thank you. And thank you for having us. My name is Victor. I was born in Belarus. And I grew up in former Soviet Union Republic of Belarus. Then I was a law school student in Belarus for a couple of years before moving to the United States. Once I moved to the United States, I decided to continue my legal studies. So I enrolled into a law school and several years later graduated with a law degree. Right now, I'm an attorney. I practice law. The primary focus is commercial litigation, commercial disputes, trade secret misappropriation claims. But that's not my passion. My passion is travel. I travel the world. That's how I define myself, as a traveler first, lawyer second. My first trip was to St. Petersburg, Russia, when I was 13 years old. That was a life-changing moment. I vividly remember that trip. because St. Petersburg is one of the best cities in the world to visit at any age. But as a teenager, seeing all of that grand architecture blew my mind. And I was hooked on travel since that time. Of course, when you're a teenager, you don't have that much time or money to travel around the world. It took me some time to get to the point where I was comfortable going to places. And yes, we've been traveling with Julia since 2004. It's been almost 20 years on the road, and every year brings some joy with visiting some new place, some exciting new destination. And as Julia said, that's exactly what we do when we work our jobs. It's always, I work right now, but what about the next trip? Where are we going next? And it helps to keep you focused. It keeps things into perspective, and it also gives some light in the end of the tunnel that even though you do this mundane work on a day in, day out basis, you know that a new trip is coming.
I would like to ask you, why are you here in El Salvador? Why you decided to come here?
We are here for a couple of reasons. One reason is that earlier this year, or I should say last year, because we're recording this on the first day of 2022, in the summer of 2021, we took a trip to a little country, Albania, in Europe, in the Balkans, and that was a very interesting trip. Albania is one of those places that is not very well known. Not a lot of travelers go to Albania. And when we visited Albania, we were just shocked how many things Albania offers. And Albania was, and still is, very underappreciated as a travel destination. So we were shocked with this discovery. And the other thing about Albania is very tiny, small country. You can drive from south to north in a couple of hours. And Albania was packed with things that we could do, that we could see. It was very exciting to do that. And when we started to plan our end of the year trip, when we usually travel as well, I should say I had this idea that maybe we should find another Albania. And we looked at the map and we found El Salvador. Latin America is one of those places where we usually like to go. We've been to other places. We've been to Guatemala, Panama, Mexico, and we love Latin America. Absolutely. It's one of the best places to visit. And El Salvador was our Latin American Albania. The country is so small that you can easily travel around. And as we now know, since we are closer to the end of our trip, it's packed with things that you can do. Despite its size, it has a lot of things to offer to travelers. And I'm so glad that in 2021 we were able to do Albania and El Salvador, the countries that are small in size but has lots of things to do.
It means that you don't regret the decision of coming here?
Oh, no, we absolutely don't regret the decision of coming here. We had a blast. We had a wonderful time. Another reason for Albania is, unfortunately, COVID. A lot of other countries are closed. Usually end-of-year trips, we go to Southeast Asia. It's not possible this year because they're closed due to COVID. We were also looking for a country where people are vaccinated, and I know 65% of El Salvadorians are vaccinated, which made us feel safe. Also, this is a country that allowed us to come in by showing our vaccine cards and not having to quarantine, not having to do tests. So that was also a part of the decision for why this destination made sense at this time. We would have eventually came to El Salvador anyway. We're going to eventually visit every country in Latin America and South America. But it was this year because of Albania and COVID.
Based on our conversations, I understand that you have a blog where you publish your travel stories and experiences. Tell me about it.
Yes, a few years ago, we realized that we've been traveling for about 15 years or so, and things started to fade from our minds. We would constantly have conversations. Wait, where did this happen? What did we do? Did we even visit this place? What did we do there? And, every time you come from a trip, you tell all these funny stories to your friends. You show all the pictures. It's all fresh. A few years go by, and it all kind of fades away. It could also just be because we're getting old. So we were talking about, writing things down. Let's start putting these stories down on paper. Let's start organizing the pictures. Let's make sure that, we're traveling, but we're actually remembering all of this. So we talked about it, and we first thought, maybe we'll do Facebook, or maybe we'll do, a WordPress blog. And finally, we decided we're going to do our own blog. It's called twocatsbackpack.com. So that refers to the fact that every time we go on the road with our backpacks, we have to leave our two cats behind. So, yeah. So it's twocatsbackpack.com. And it's not your usual travel blog, meaning that it doesn't give you, the top 10 destinations or what should you pack or where should you go. It's our personal stories. It's our funny stories. It's our sometimes sad stories. It's our interesting stories of people we meet, of things we do, of things that happen to us. A lot of it is, us being stupid on the road and missing a train and missing a flight and, not knowing the language. And a lot of it is just observations of things we see on the road, because we've been to some countries that most of our friends would never go to, but are very interested in hearing about. So those are the stories that we write down. And I think, how many posts do we have at this point?
Right now, I think we have over 100. We had our 100th post last year, sometime in September. I think.
September, yeah.
Yeah. So right now it's
a
around.
little over 100 posts right now.
Yes.
Could you tell me the 3 main lessons that you have learned while traveling?
I can start. And I would say that probably more than 3, but if you ask to identify top 3, I would say number 1 is to keep an open mind. We've been traveling for nearly 20 years, and early on when we started to do travel, I used to do one thing that I no longer do. I would over-research a country. I would show up and I would know everything. And for Julia, this was convenient because she had a very knowledgeable guide who would take her around. But for me, this was not fun because you don't discover things. Since then, I stopped looking at pictures of places where I'm going. If I read something about certain place, I would certainly read some information about the place, but not look at pictures, because you want that sensory overload when you see something for the first time. So that's one. And I would say lesson number 1, don't over-research a country that you visit. But lesson number 2, you still need to research the place that you visit. You cannot just show up and learn everything about the place. For example, with Albania, I will be going back and forth with Albania and El Salvador. With Albania, before we left, I read 4 novels by famous Albanian writer. With El Salvador, I took a book from a law library that was published last year called The Coffee Land. And it's about the coffee industry in El Salvador, how it shaped the history of the country. And of course, when you visit El Salvador, you need to know about the Civil War, about things that happened in the past. Just, it puts things into perspective. If you have a longer trip, you probably can show up without learning anything beforehand and find out on your own. But when you have limited time, I would say that you need to have that basic understanding what these people who live in this country went through. And lesson number 3, I would say that lesson number one, don't over research. Lesson number two, do some research when you prepare for the travel. And lesson number three, keep an open mind. When we visited Vietnam a couple of years ago, we had our itinerary, but then we met a couple of guys who offered us to drive us on motorcycles through Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was not in our plans, but we kept an open mind.
No, the idea of jumping on a stranger's motorcycle and going for 2 days through a jungle was not in our plans, but we loved every minute of it.
Yes, and that was the highlight of our trip, absolutely. And that because we decided to keep an open mind about things and experiences, because sometimes when you show up in a country, you may think that you know everything about it or a lot, but the best part about travel is discovering something new.
What about your main lessons, Julia?
For me, one of the most important lessons has been not to jump from country to country when you're going traveling. When I started traveling, my itinerary would look like this. Berlin, 2 days. London, 2 days. Madrid, 3 days. And all you're doing is you're showing up in the city. And all the big cities are, in a certain way, they're the same, right? They offer the same kind of attractions. So you show up in the city, you find your hostel, your hotel, you unpack, and then you go to the main square, you go to the, main museum, you go to the, whatever the main attraction is, Eiffel Tower or the Big Ben, and then you go back to the hotel and you go to sleep and you wake up in the morning and you do that same thing again, and then you pack up and then you travel to the next city. And you're jumping from city to city, and by the end of the trip, what you're doing is you're comparing different cities to each other, a lot of times unfavorably, and a lot of times unjustifiably, because maybe the weather was bad in Berlin. It doesn't mean Berlin is a bad city. You were there when the weather was bad, right? Or maybe you had food poisoning in Netherlands. So that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with Amsterdam. But I personally hated Amsterdam for about 15 years until Victor took me back there and showed me it's a perfectly good city. It's an absolutely lovely city, but I was in a bad mood when I visited 9 different cities in 11 days. When I was 21, because I was stupid. Yeah. So now the lesson I've learned is, you come to the country, you go to the little villages, you go to the seaside, you climb a mountain, you go to the city, you explore the entire country. You explore the cuisine, you explore the people, you explore the history, you do all the little things that they offer in all the different parts, and you learn how different parts of one country are different from each other. And you get to like that country, and you get to love that country. And later when you read news about that country, you feel like that's a little part of you. You've been there, you've gotten to know the people, you feel bad or you feel good, depending on whether the news are good or bad. You don't get that when you're just jumping around. And that would be one of the things that I always advise other travelers is pick a country and stick to it. If you have 2 weeks, pick a bigger country. If you have 1 week, pick a smaller country. But don't try to, I have a week, so let me just, do the entire Europe in one go. Another one of the lessons I've learned traveling is packing. If you're going for 18 days, you don't need 18 days worth of clothes. You need 5 days worth of clothes. And then you're just going to wear the same thing again, because guess what? People in Berlin did not see you wear that same clothes twice. Because you already moved on to the Munich or whatever. Well, you wash. You wash halfway through the trip, or you wash a third way through the trip. Same thing as we've done here. And you make do. You're not really switching your clothes out every single day at home either. And as long as it doesn't get too smelly and as long as it doesn't get too dirty, it'll pass, But otherwise, yeah, you can always wash. You find a laundromat or you do it, in your hotel or your Airbnb. But I remember packing giant suitcases, 26, 28-inch suitcases, some of my first trips, and then just having to drag them around. Made no sense. We have our backpacks. We have a small backpack for a 1-week trip. We have a bigger backpack for a 2-week trip. The bigger backpacks are always not fully packed because we're going to buy things in the country that we come to. We're going to buy souvenirs and things like that, some things to bring home. So yeah, do not overpack. There's literally no reason for it.
Okay, let's say you travel and learn a lot from an intense trip, but how do you feel yourselves trying to readapt to the US culture and environment again?
Yes, I can start again on this. For me, every time I come back from a trip, I have a mini depression.
Mini one, okay.
Yes, a mini one. Because, well, first of all, you get back from a trip. You've been to all these exciting places. You've been doing all these wonderful things, exploring other cultures, eating some new food. And now you're back at home and you need to go to work. And it takes a couple of days to adjust that it's not adventures and vacation anymore. It's mundane, everyday life. But at the same time, what I love about coming back from the trip, it's like an addiction. You are so addicted to travel, then you get home, you unpack, you meet with your friends, you tell everyone about your trip, you write travel posts on the blog about your experiences, you sort out all of your pictures that you took, you create an album with your favorites, and then 2-3 weeks after that, after you lived through this, and after you watch some documentaries on the country that you visited because there was some particular aspect that you were interested in about, then at certain point you realize and you ask your question, where's next? And you start planning your next trip. And I absolutely love planning trips. If I could get paid for creating itineraries, this would be a dream job because I love doing that. And every time I come back from any trip and go through all these post-trip activities, it's always about the next trip, and I can spend months planning an itinerary, reading up on a new country that I want to visit, and I think that's the best part. So on one hand, you said that the trip is over, but at the same time, you're happy that the trip happened, and you always look forward to new trips.
What about you, Julia?
I find that when I get back to US, I spend several weeks living in memories of things that just happened, constantly remembering, comparing prices, always unfavorably to US. We came back from Thailand and for some reason decided to go to a Thai restaurant because we missed the food, and I had a miniature breakdown going, this is $11. This was $1 back in Phuket or whatever. So yes, and then, there's always you were in 90-degree weather, and then you come back and it's negative, 10 or whatever it is. That's always hard because Chicago has terrible weather. But yeah, I always spend weeks after the trip still recollecting it, still talking about it, really feeling all the way into it. Takes hours and hours to do the pictures, like Victor mentioned, because we take so many pictures. It's literally thousands of pictures to go. So go through the pictures, pick out the best ones, correct them, put them in albums. I really don't like it when people just take pictures and then they just abandon them. You're never going to look at them again. Unless you clean them up, you put them in albums, they're all sorted, and you kind of have them day by day, and you know where you've been, and it kind of catalogs your day. And that takes a few weeks, and then before I know it, Victor will come up to me and say, what about Germany? And then we're doing is talking about Germany. Or, what about Kenya? Or whatever it is, whatever the next trip is going to be.
Yeah, the list is long.
Yeah, the list is long. Yeah, the list is never ending.
As travelers, we have good experiences and bad experiences. Could you tell me about your good and bad experiences that you have had traveling around the world?
My best and worst experience, and it's hard to say that it was definitely the best and definitely the worst. What one of the best and one of the worst experiences actually happened in the same country. It was in Egypt. We went to Egypt in 2011 and just so happened to be there during the Spring Revolution.
Wow.
Right? Arab Spring Revolution, that's what I'm trying to say. We were in the airport in O'Hare, and we were watching Cairo burn on the TV screen. And we were just sitting there, waiting for a plane, going, wait, are we going there? Why are we going there? Obviously unplanned, something that happened between, the time when we planned the trip and bought our tickets and secured everything, and then all of a sudden things started to unravel. We decided we were still going to go. We're not missing a vacation. We don't miss vacations unless we have to over COVID. That's the only time we actually missed a vacation. So we came to Egypt, and the best experience we had, or I felt I had, was totally unexpected. We went camping in the White Desert, and it was the most surreal, most beautiful experience of my life. The White Desert is gorgeous. It has these giant white naturally built sculptures out of limestone that sort of wind and the elements have created. And we were driving in a 4x4 truck through the desert. And then at some point we stopped and we started camping. And as the sun went down, the stars came out. And obviously, the desert is flat. So you felt like there were stars from one horizon to the next. Like you were trapped in a bell jar full of stars. And it was so bright that at some point I almost got a little dizzy just looking at them. And it felt like I was the only person in the world, and everywhere around me were just stars. And it was an incredible experience. And the worst experience was watching what Egyptians were going through at the time. Because we were in their country and we were having an absolutely lovely time. We lived 3 blocks away from Tahrir Square, where on the same day where in the morning we went and visited the beautiful Egyptian museum and walked around the square and enjoyed the food, and then we went back, that evening they killed 24 people, the military. And it was something that was incredibly hard for us because, we're just there visiting. And these people are fighting for their freedom. And after we left Cairo, we went down to Luxor and we continued our trip. We saw all the pyramids, incredible things, but we kept hearing news of what was happening in Cairo, what was happening at the Tahrir Square, and how many people were dying. And it was so hard to kind of reconcile the fact that even when we were living 3 blocks away from Tahrir Square, all the shops were open. Kids were eating ice cream. You couldn't tell that there was a revolution happening in the city just a few blocks away. And we felt, I don't know, it's really hard to explain how you feel. You feel like someone watching a movie, but you're in that movie. And it seems like you should be able to do something, but you really can't. There's nothing you can do, obviously. So you just kind of go on with your vacation plans and you have this excellent and wonderful time and really one of the top countries I've been to. But at the same time, as the background to that, there is what's happening in that country and what's happening to people. And that happens a lot to us in our travels. We went to India and it was incredible. But at the same time, you're seeing this unbelievable poverty that you cannot do anything about. There's nothing you can do. You cannot feed a starving dog because 100 more dogs will come by. You cannot help a child because 1,000 children will descend upon you. You feel completely helpless. And it's those things that happen when you travel to countries like Egypt, like India, for example, that make it incredibly hard. But at the same time, in the end, a bit rewarding because you got to see a completely different side of life that you would never see in the United States.
Yes.
Try to beat that story. Come on.
Yes, I have no chance of topping that. But as you were describing our experiences in Egypt, I was thinking about India, that India was the hardest trip that we took. Yes, it was very painful to watch what people go through. Yes, absolutely. It was absolutely heartbreaking at times. My personal horror story was that I got sick on the second day, on the first day of our trip in India. We arrived late in the evening. The next day, we took a tour of New Delhi, and there was one mosque that we went to see. They asked us to remove our shoes. I walked on.
It was cold marble.
It was cold marble, yeah.
We weren't wearing socks because we were wearing sandals.
Yes.
So all of a sudden we're walking barefoot on really, really cold marble for a long time because they kind of toured us through the whole mosque. And I remember by the end of it going, oh my God, like this is really
we were there for almost an hour. So by the time the tour ended, I started to feel something in my throat. And that same evening, we were supposed to take a train from New Delhi to Udaipur. By the time we got to the train station, I was sick. I had my temperature running. Then we found out what Indian trains look like, and and this was quite an experience. So we rode that train.
Can I jump in really quickly?
Yes, please, Julia, go ahead.
We were still in the train station, and the train started coming, and it was slowing down, and people started running to catch up with the train. And Victor looked at me absolutely horrified and said, "Do we run?" And I was like, "No, we've got luggage. We can't. If this train isn't going to fully stop, we've got no chance of catching it." But there was that 1 minute where we both thought that the thing to do in India is to run as the train slows down, jump on it, and then it's just going to keep going. We really didn't know if it was going to stop.
Yes.
And then eventually did stop, and we were able to get on normally. But that was our first introduction to, that's an Indian train. Yeah.
Yes. And unfortunately, our seats were in a terrible spot in the train.
Right by the bathroom.
We were right by the bathroom, and there were three beds. Three beds, and my ticket was to the upper third bed, right next to the ceiling of that train. The train was very narrow, and my legs were sticking out.
And just FYI, Victor is not a tall man.
I'm not a tall person.
No, but still, yeah. Still, we could not fit on those berths, yeah.
This was a night train, I had my fever running. I'm not feeling well. Also, there was a bright light in that train, so you can't sleep. You had your fever, and I remember that I was on that bed in this Indian train, thinking, maybe it's time to retire from travel. Maybe I should find a hook and put my backpack and to be done with travel. And of course, that was not a serious thought. It was just the moment I felt so terrible. By the time we arrived to Udaipur, I started to feel a little bit better. And Udaipur is very beautiful, very pretty town in India. So when we got there in the morning and we saw the beautiful architecture, I started to feel even better. And 2 days later, I was absolutely fine. And as for the best experience, I would say India. Same way, because it's when your trip is hard, it gives you more pleasure to appreciate things because you feel like you've accomplished something. And again, India is a very beautiful country. Some provinces like Rajasthan with all those beautiful forts, beautiful palaces, absolutely breathtaking. So yeah, I would say India was the best trip and the worst trip.
Wow, you guys have incredible stories. Wow.
One of my favorite stories came from India. I'm going to tell you really quickly. We were driving, Victor, remind me where we were driving from and to. This was Christmas Eve. And we were driving, we stopped by an animal sanctuary. And I was just enjoying watching all the birds and all the animals. And I took my camera out. I had my little backpack. They had my money in it, my passport, my camera. And I kind of put it at my feet, and I was taking all the pictures, and I was just so happy. And then our driver, we hired a driver for the trip. Usually we travel on our own. But India, there's an issue with where foreigners basically cannot drive in that country. And public transportation, A, wasn't very safe, and B, wasn't going to be very convenient. So for part of the trip, for most of the trip, we hired a car and a driver, a really nice, wonderful guy named Sunil who drove us around and showed us everything. And so Sunil said, okay, guys, it's time to go. We got back in the car. I'm holding my camera. I'm really excited. And he says, well, we're going to be passing by villages, Bishnoi people. But unfortunately, we are passing them by too late. Usually, if we were there during the day, they would welcome us and they could show us how they live, and they would do an opium ceremony. And I said, an opium ceremony? What's an opium ceremony? Well, they believe that opium has medicinal qualities, and they offer you opium to drink. And I went, oh, God, I'm not drinking. What are you talking about? I'm not drinking opium. So I thought to myself, oh, good. It's actually a good thing that we are not there during the day. So he's like, yeah, but we're passing by at night, so, you'll just see the village, and we'll keep going. So we're driving, and all of a sudden I think, oh, I'm going to put my camera back in my bag. And I start looking around, and my bag is not there. My money, my wallet, my passport, not there. So immediately I go, Sunil, I left my bag at the animal sanctuary. Oh, my God. So he immediately gets off the highway. He brakes. We look for my bag in the back seat. We look for it in the trunk. It is not there. I left it. He goes, I'm going to drop you off at the Bishnoi village, and I'm going to go back to the animal sanctuary, and I'll pick up your bag. But there's no reason for you to drive with me back and forth. You're here anyway. I'll drop you off. He pulls up to one of the houses, and the whole village is dark. Everybody's already, in their houses. And a man comes out. And Sunil talks to him, in Hindu, and kind of explains that these are tourists and, can he entertain us for 30 minutes or whatever. Sunil will be right back. So he leaves. Now, nobody speaks English in this village. It's just, me and Victor. And this man seems to have a few English phrases that he has memorized to kind of show tourists around. So he starts showing us around this dark village as if it's day. His wife wakes up, his children wake up, he's showing us around, he's showing us the cows. And just as a side note, we've been paranoid. We've been there for maybe about 10 days by this point, or 5 days. We've been paranoid about getting sickness from food. Every tourist who goes to India gets sick, gets the traveler's diarrhea. We've been cleaning our hands, we've been washing utensils, we've been checking that the food has been properly prepared every day. So this man, and he's a farmer, he petted the cow, he picked up some dirt, he was showing us some grain. Then he brings us into the house, and he takes out some instruments, some metal things, and he starts pouring water from what I imagine is just a well. Water that is not safe to drink for us, or really for anybody. And he starts doing things, and I look at Victor and go, what is he doing? What is happening? And Victor, laughing, kind of goes, oh, I think it's the opium ceremony. And the guy picks up his head and goes, opium ceremony? And we both just freeze. We're so freaked out. And I go, his hands are dirty. He's just using water from the well. The man mixes opium and water, pours it directly into his hand, and then stretches out his hand towards us, beckons us to come and drink directly from his hand. And we're just sitting there at night, in the middle of India, in the middle of rural India, in the Bishnoi village. Sunil is not there to save us. We don't know what to do. So Victor gets up and goes, oh, I'm going. And I'm like, no, I can't lose you. So he gets up and he goes over there, he kneels, and he drinks from this man's hand. Walks back and goes, it's fine. My lips are tingling a little bit, but it's fine. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. The man once again mixes water with opium, puts it in his hand, and he extends it towards me. I mean, what do you do at this point? I get up and I'm just like, my life is flashing before my eyes. I'm like, well, this is it. This is how I go, apparently. I go down, I bend down, I drink the opium. It tingles in my mouth, it tingles on my lips and my tongue. I don't really know if I'm going to get high. I've never done drugs. I don't know what this is going to do to me. I go back, I sit down, and immediately, as soon as I do this, the door opens, Sunil comes in, and he has my bag with my passport and my wallet and everything. And I'm so happy, but a part of me going, is this real or is this now hallucinations? So, and this was Christmas Eve, and then Sunil kept driving us, and he said, do you guys want a nice restaurant for Christmas Eve? And I was like, yep, might as well go out, with a nice restaurant, because I'm still wondering what effects this is going to have on my body. It was obviously completely fine. We didn't get sick. We didn't get diarrhea. We didn't get high. Obviously, the man knew what he was doing with this opium ceremony. But it was quite a stressful half an hour or an hour until I realized we were going to be in the clear.
Interesting. Yeah. Let me ask you, if you have to leave the US, where would you like to live? Which country would you choose?
Well, I know what Victor's going to say.
Yes.
He's going to say,
obvious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
1, 2, 3. Mexico.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, if I had to leave the United States tomorrow and choose a place to live, Mexico would be my top choice. Love Mexico. I've been there multiple times. And I don't have any specific place where I would go, but in my dream, I would live in different places. I love Mexico City. I love Guadalajara, other places. And ideally, I would go and live in Mexico. The other country that I have some feelings and I absolutely adore is France. And it's, if I had to skip Mexico and go somewhere else, France. I don't speak the language, but the art, the food, it's one of the best places to visit. And in fact, we keep coming back to both Mexico and France. And what we usually do, we just go and explore one city or one region, and we never get tired of Mexico. And
Mexico has a really rich culture and food and everything. From north to south, it is a big and beautiful country.
I am obviously going to go and live wherever Victor is living. But
so it's France and
yeah. But one of the countries I've been obsessively watching blogs about and vlogs and kind of YouTubers talking about is Japan. We've been to Japan. I loved it. And the more I watch videos from Japan, the more I realize we only barely scratched the surface. There's so much more to see. There's so much more to do. I don't think I would do well living permanently in Japan. I don't think foreigners do well. They're welcoming to tourists, but I think there's still that line of where, they're very private people and they don't really like intrusions from foreigners. So I don't, but I would love to spend 6 months in Japan. I would love to spend a year in Japan. But as for living permanently, Victor's going to have to pick. And apparently it's going to be Mexico.
Yeah, it is decided.
It is decided.
You told me you have visited several places of El Salvador. What do you think about this country?
Yes, as I said previously, El Salvador is small in size, but it packs a lot. And that's not an overstatement. That's true. We had here more than 2 weeks, and we still have places that we would like to come back and visit. Out of all places, I would say that we absolutely loved Ruta de las Flores. Beautiful towns, lots of colorful murals, great places to try coffee.
And if you come at the right time, beautiful flowers.
Exactly.
Because we're here in the end of December. Yeah. All of the trees, all of the bushes are flowering. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, it's a beautiful sight. Plus, Ruta de las Flores is one of those places where it's not extremely hot. You have the mountainous air. It's fresh. You can really enjoy that place. Also, in El Salvador, we went to the east and we visited places in the east, and it's our understanding that most of the tourists who come to El Salvador, they usually tend to focus on the west part of the country. Ruta de las Flores, Santa Ana volcano. But we decided to carve out a couple of days and go to the east, and we absolutely loved every day of it. You can visit El Cuco beach, beautiful Playa Esteron. I took my first surfing lesson at Las Flores beach, and I think I did well.
You managed to stay on the board.
Yeah.
For like, I don't know, 5 seconds, 7 seconds. It was impressive.
Yeah, it was very exciting. Yeah, and the top experience, as Julia and I we discussed this morning, was actually camping on top of volcano Conchagua.
Conchagua volcano.
Yeah, this was
wow.
the absolute top experience, and the reason why this was a top experience for us, as we said previously, it's about getting there, and it's not easy, because before we came here, I tried to find any information how to do camping on Conchagua, and there was not a lot of information. Not a lot of information on sites where English speaking travelers write about their experiences. I even looked up Spanish speaking travel bloggers. Not a lot of information on that either. And all of the advice was, go to Conchagua, find Luis, he will drive you in his truck. So
we're like, who's Luis?
Who is Luis?
How do you just show up to a town and go, Luis, we want to go on the volcano?
But that's exactly what we did. We drove to Conchagua. We had to go to a police department, and they called Luis. He told us to go to some Chinese...
No. We showed up at the police department, and they said, what happened? Yeah. We're like, nothing. We just want to go on the volcano. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And they started calling Luis.
So it was a journey to get to the top of that volcano. Yeah, we didn't hike to the top of the volcano. We took a ride there, but it was certainly an adventure to get there. And it's absolutely beautiful. One of the most beautiful views of El Salvador, where you can see 3 countries meeting together: El Salvador, Honduras,
Golfo de Fonseca.
Yeah, Nicaragua, beautiful islands. We spent the night on the volcano. We saw the sunrise, the sunset.
And it's crazy that you can't find any of this information, how to get there, how to get the camping equipment on English-speaking web. And I found this common for El Salvador, where in a lot of places, you want to rent something, here's someone's phone number. There's no web presence. Google will not find anything. Even when Victor would search in Spanish, because Victor does speak a bit of Spanish, he wouldn't find all that much information. All he would find is, here's a phone number, contact directly.
But but that's also adds to the experience to accomplishing something. And the East that we visited was absolutely amazing. I would say that more people should go to the east of the country and visit. The problem is that a lot of people, when they visit El Salvador, they do not allocate enough time. When we arrived here on December 16, we met a couple of travelers. They were in El Salvador only for 3 days. When we told them that, we have 2 weeks here, I was like, wow, that's a lot. And of course, if you have 3 days, you will not be able to see all of the great things. But yeah, we absolutely loved it. I would say Ruta de las Flores, the East, was absolutely, and also the other part of the of El Salvador was Alegría in Berlin.
Very unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. We
were just like, we'll just buy some pretty towns. And we got there and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
The lagoon. The small lagoon.
We hiked there 2 days ago. Yeah.
Based on your life experience, traveling, and successful professionals that you are, what will you recommend to Salvadoran young people?
Well, it's hard to make a recommendation to Salvadoran young people because we don't know the challenges that they're facing growing up in this country and trying to build a future in this country. I can give you recommendations that I give to young people in United States.
Okay.
My friends' children, mostly, or, other young people that I meet. you don't, and my biggest thing that I'd like to say is, you don't have to do things just because other people want you to do them. You don't have to go to med school because that's what your mom wants. You should do what you want to do. Yes, you do need to make money, but you don't need to be in a profession that you hate. You do need to follow your heart when it comes to picking a profession, when it comes to deciding who to marry or whether to marry. It is a choice whether you want to be married or not. It is not something that you have to do. It is a choice to have a big house or not have a big house. You could just live in a small apartment. A lot of times it feels like young people are being pushed into the same path as their parents took. You graduate college, you get married, you have children, you go to the office, you buy as big of a house as you can afford, you buy as big of a car as you can afford, and you just keep stuffing that house with physical things. You have choices as to what you can do. This is your life. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. If that makes you happy, sure. But you can think about these things and you can decide that that doesn't make you happy and do other things. Your parents already had their lives. They lived them the way they wanted to. You can live your life the way you want to. You do have to listen to advice of older people. And you can take that advice to heart. But you don't have to do everything the way the society tells you to do it. That would be, and it's especially the part about choosing experience over choosing things, I feel is very important to remember. You'll buy a new thing, you'll spend money on it, it's gonna break, or you're gonna lose it a year later, or it's just not gonna bring you any joy in 2-3 weeks. But doing experiences, going places, traveling, even just hanging out with your friends, going to do a new activity, trying a new hobby, these are the things that will make you happy long term. And I believe my money is always spent on the experiences rather than things.
Excellent advice, Julia. Excellent.
I would just add, I completely agree with what you just said. I would just add that I would advise all of the young people just to constantly keep learning new things. This world changes so fast. In 5 years, you have a different world that was 5 years before. And you have to evolve. You cannot just be stale and do things how your parents did or how you did things 5-10 years ago. You have to constantly evolve, constantly learn new things. And I think that's important. I think people should not forget that. I personally try to be a better version of myself every day and progress. So I think that's what makes changes in people's life. And also the other thing is it's all about small changes in yourself. You should not be you should be setting big goals, but it's about what exactly you do to achieve those goals. And if you can set a goal and make small improvements every day, and you'll get to those days. I'll give you an example. When COVID happened, I started to walk around the house in the evening after work, just to keep in shape, to maintain some physical agility. And I've been walking for 18 months now, every day for 5-6 kilometers every day. So when I got to El Salvador and we did lots of hikes, I could handle those hikes easily. Before COVID,
I was literally dying. He would just walk up a volcano and I'll be like, don't worry about me. I'm just going to crawl up on my own pace.
Yeah, but if this trip was before COVID, I would struggle as well. So you don't wake up overnight, oh, I can do this climb, or I can easily hike the volcano. It's all about small change, progression, and being better version of yourself the next day.
Great advice. Interesting, really interesting. Great advices. Thank you. How do you feel in this apartment?
This, I believe, is one of the best apartments we've stayed in El Salvador. Maybe is it in whole Latin America? I'm trying to think back. It's kind of hard to remember every place we've stayed in. What I really like about this place is it is not too big, it is not too small, it is the perfect size to spend a few days. It's got all the amenities that you need. We have a table because, every time Victor sees a table, he needs to sit at the table and he needs to write some notes. He's a lawyer at heart. I don't know what he's writing, but this needs to happen. And so many times you'd be in the room and he'd be like just trying to write on a bed or on his knee or something. But yeah, he's got his laptop out right now. The table is full of stuff. He's definitely using it. I love the fact that there's a little kitchenette. We can make coffee. We have been making coffee. I think that coffee might almost be over because of how many cups. I'm going to not point at someone sitting across me, but he's been drinking most of them, not me.
It's very good coffee.
Yeah, he loves coffee.
It is a good coffee.
I love the fact that the bathroom is planned out well. There is enough space to put down your toiletries. There's a countertop. So many times you show up at someone's Airbnb and you're just standing there with your toothbrush going, where am I supposed to put this? I have nowhere to put my toothbrush. I have nowhere to hang my towels to dry. I don't have a full-length mirror to look at myself. Because when you're traveling, things get funky. You want to make sure your clothes are clean before you leave the house. You want to look at yourself in a full-size mirror, which you have here, which is really nice. I think this may be the first full-size mirror I've seen the entire trip. I've finally been able to look at myself the entire trip. So yes, the house, the Airbnb is really, really nice.
I think you're forgetting the most important part.
What am I forgetting?
The host.
The host, of course, yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you. I wish you the best. I'm pretty sure you will have a lot of success in your lives. I'm not sure if I will see you again, but in the case you would like to come back, this is your house.
We honestly would love to come back. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And if we ever come back to this country, we would have to spend at least a few days in San Salvador because that's where you fly in, that's where you fly out of.
Yeah. That's the natural stop.
Yeah. And we had to, usually, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have showed up night before the flight, spend the night and then flew out. Because of COVID, we have to take a COVID test. And San Salvador is the only city where we knew for sure there'd be a laboratory. We didn't know. We've seen other laboratories around the country, but we didn't see them online. When we were researching, we couldn't find anything. So we didn't want to risk it. So we scheduled 2 days in San Salvador. And Victor was a little sad about it because it ruined his perfect itinerary. And he's like, well, I don't know if there's too much to do. But now that we're here, I'm really happy that we got to spend the 2 days because we got to meet you. We got to spend the New Year's, which is absolutely incredible. You made one of the best paellas I've ever had. And I've had paella in Spain, okay? We got to see the fireworks and have a lovely conversation. And we've spent a lot of New Year's on the road. And I think this is the first time that we felt as welcomed as this. Where usually our New Year's is we try to stumble into some restaurant at 9 p.m., we eat dinner, and then we have this conversation of, do we stay up until midnight or do we just go to sleep? Because traveling is tiring and you're on the road, and, if we were home, we would obviously go to a party and stay up until midnight. But when you're on the road, it's just, you're so tired. You're just like, you know what? Let's pretend that 10 p.m. is the midnight and let's just go to sleep. Well, this time we actually stayed up until midnight and we had a lovely time.
Yes, absolutely.
So thank you very much.
You are very welcome. Thank you for your time and for this interview. This is a great interview. It is really, really interesting listening all your travel stories. I hope, guys, that you can continue traveling.
We absolutely hope so. It seemed for a bit there that COVID was really going to put a stop into that. We still, even during 2020, the moment we got vaccinated, we managed to squeeze a little trip to Mexico in. This year we had 2 trips, and we absolutely hope to keep going, to keep traveling, to see a new place at least once a year, hopefully twice a year.
Yeah, it's a privilege to travel.
It is.
We knew that before COVID, that we are very lucky and privileged to do that. But yeah, now in the age of COVID, it's especially true that nothing is guaranteed.
No plane is guaranteed. There's zero guarantee that we're going to get on the plane, that we're going to get home.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing, the fact that we're able to do this, yes.
Yeah.
Well, sadly, we will end this program here. Next time, we will record a new program and learn more traveling stories from you. Thanks a lot, Julia and Victor. All the best for you. Ha sido una entrevista muy interesante. Si ustedes tienen algún comentario o recomendación sobre este programa, pueden escribirme a mihuésped@yahoo.com. Estaré pendiente de la comunicación con ustedes. Gracias por su atención, los espero en el próximo programa. Nuevamente le agradecemos a Denilson Quijano por dejarnos usar su música como fondo de nuestro programa.